and in the presentations and as the corporate logos of companies all around the world. That is you. That is your influence. And it is something that we at Envato are so proud to play a very small part in. Congratulations. Well, I want to start by taking you back to just after IDEA started, okay? That was about May 2012, and I had made a decision. I had a young family, and I decided that instead of doing the career that I was in, I wanted to do something different. I had gone to school for graphic design. Surprise, surprise. And I ended up saying to myself, you know what? I have seen some of these agencies that are out there, and they're making logos for people and charging like $30,000 for a simple logo. And I thought, that's a business I need to get into. I can do that, right? Not only that, I can charge $10,000, and I can steal all of these amazing contracts and clients from all these other people. And I will make way more money than I have ever made and still be giving great value to all of my clients. That story sounds similar to some of you?
Yeah. Yes. Sounds familiar.
Well, in 2012, logo design was still a service. It was something that you had to find somebody who was good enough to do it and pay them lots of money to do. But about June of 2012, so just after IDEA probably had their first event, something changed. Maybe Graphic River started. Maybe 99 Design started. But whatever it was, all of a sudden, what I was doing, the thing that I thought was going to take me on my career, didn't. It started to change. But I got lucky. I still got one or two clients, and they didn't pay me quite as much as I thought I might make. Because they never do they? But I started to do something, so I thought, okay, there's a little bit of something in this, so I'm going to go for it. So I started a website. I bought a theme from ThemeForest, and I created my website. I started my company, got those first few clients, and then the whole industry changed overnight. In the span of a few months, I went from being in an industry that was willing to pay thousands of dollars for a logo to an industry where they would get thousands of logos for $100. Talk about a change. For some reason, a bunch of people all around the world decided that they could create logos and sell them on marketplaces. Some of you? It's all okay. It's all good. But it became harder and harder for me to stand out. Like, I was okay. But would I say that I was as gifted as some of the artists and creators in this room? Nah, not at all. But it became harder and harder for me to stand out. And after a couple of those early wins, I hit a period of drought. All of a sudden, it died down. There's no money coming in, or very little money coming in, and I was trying to figure out how am I going to feed my family. I had a young son. What was I going to do? My wife was working full-time, and she was paying all the bills. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you've experienced a situation like this. You sort of think that you have everything figured out, right? You've got the right industry, you've got the right skill set, and just as you have everything going your way, something changes. Well, there I was, a few months into my newly identified career. I had quit my job and did all these other things, and I was no longer able to compete. And if I didn't make some decisions really, really quick, it was going to end before it really began. Business is like that, isn't it? Right? Just as you think you have it figured out, it changes. Envato's kind of like that too, right? Perhaps you've experienced it. I think in many ways we've all experienced it, haven't we? Whether on Envato or somewhere else, we create and we sell, and then just as we're getting some traction, things change. I mean, life would be amazing if things stayed the same, right? How many people remember the long shadow trend in graphics? Yeah? Maybe you remember the bootstrap trend in code. Or Flash. Does anybody remember Flash? We used to have a whole marketplace for Flash. If only things would stay the same, right? But they don't. Today we've heard a lot about how our industry is changing. We've heard about the impact and the power of trends and the shift in how customers act and what they value. I mean, if there's one thing Envato has proven over its history, it's that as trends and technology change, a platform that sells creative content also needs to change and adapt. Envato has weathered a lot of change, and we have put intentional emphasis on disrupting ourselves and ensuring that authors have a pathway, no matter what, to earning from their creativity. We wish we could go back to the good old days, right? What Envato does and the ecosystem that Envato creates must change and adapt as the industry changes and adapts. With a promise that change will happen, though, how can authors set themselves up for success? Right? How do you handle it? What can authors be doing today to take full advantage of all that Envato has to offer? Maybe you've been around Envato for a while and you remember our ancient slogan, you do the creative and we'll do the rest. Does that still work in 2019? Is there more authors could be doing? I mean, if we think back to 2012, when I first jumped into design as a career, the Envato landscape was much different. There were 45,000 authors, not all of them making content. Those are just people who put their hand up and said, yeah, I'm an author, right? But we had 116,000 items on market. That's it. There was a very limited supply and a ton of demand, which works really well in the favor of authors. In 2019, Envato has more customers than it has ever had, ever. And authors can sell their items across 4 different platforms. In this past year, for example, Envato's author community contributed published over 925,000 new items. These were launched by over 18,000 authors, including 6,000 authors who published their first ever item. It's a lot. In 2012, our community had achieved $85 million in lifetime earnings. But this year, we've crossed over $750 million in lifetime earnings. Envato has now enabled many, many authors to achieve over $1 million in lifetime earnings. And these are amazing accomplishments for our community, and they speak to the vibrancy of the Envato ecosystem. To kind of pick out one example, Theme Fusion, whom some of you may know, the creators of the Avada theme, they achieved the $25 million lifetime earnings milestone this year with over 500,000 individual item sales. That's great. So how is it that authors like Theme Fusion have continued to earn in the ecosystem, or even as the ecosystem adds new items and new authors? I mean, what's their secret? More than anything, they worked hard. They didn't let Envato do the rest, right? They made the decision to take ownership and responsibility for their own growth and developed strategies and techniques to help them succeed. So you ready to dig into what some of those things were?
Yeah.
Cool. If we think about the experience of a customer, as we've heard about today from Brett, their ultimate goal, a customer's ultimate goal, is not to make you money. Might be a surprise to some of you, but they're not here to make you money, right? They're here to solve a problem or to finish a project. Value is created for customers, for you and for Envato, when we can connect the right item to the right customer. One thing Envato got right from the very start was that they paid close attention to the problems their customers were facing. They weren't building a theme because a lot of other people were building themes and making money. They figured out that the average customer on ThemeForest found that themes were really confusing and hard to use. They couldn't customize them to look the way that they wanted. So what they did was they created a theme that gave the customer very, very detailed control over the look and feel of their website. And the results are what you see today. They invested time and energy and effort into understanding, researching, and solving customer problems. They did customer research, not just market research. They weren't just looking at what other people were doing or what was trending, but they were looking at the kinds of problems customers were trying to solve. If we think about what Jono just spoke about with the flat illustration trend, the reason that trend came about wasn't because it looked good. It was because it solved a problem. It solved a need of customers. So, remember, I said earlier that value, and it's still up here, value is created only when we can connect the right item to the right customer. So once you've got the right item, what comes next? Right? I mean, Envato works really, really hard to bring customers to the ecosystem. But once they're here, where do they go? Right? This is where your own marketing efforts can actually make the difference between a sale and no sale. And it begins with your item page. I hope that's the right slide. Paying careful attention to English grammar is actually really important. Not just for English-speaking customers either, but for customers that are using browser-based translation to understand what's going on in your product and your item. Customers look for items from authors who pay careful attention to the details, like correct spelling and grammar. So find those people amongst you who are really good at English, or hire a native English speaker to review your content to make sure that it makes sense. And sometimes it's as simple as one or two words switched around that can make the whole experience feel less than the best for a customer. We were in Hanoi, and on the wall they had a paragraph of text. They had a slogan that they were doing, and it was in English. And they thought, they were being inspiring and, creating that co-working tech space type scenario. But we went up and we looked at it, and it was translated wrong. And so we laughed. Just like some of you are laughing at my slides because they're translated wrong. Do you understand, right? So to you, if that sounds silly, or if you chuckle because it's translating author as writer instead of as author, those are the kinds of things that are important to pay attention to. And if, like me, you can look at that and have no idea what that actually says because you don't speak Indonesian, right? You see how important it is to have that person in your customer group that understands what's going on. Just a thought. And way off of my Slide deck. Anyway, let's keep going. There it is. That's the one I wanted you to see. Detail, detail, painting. Did I get that right? Probably not. But here's what we want to talk about now. All right. So traffic comes to your page from 3 primary sources. The first source it comes from is from the category pages on Elements. The next one is from Envato category pages. The next is from Envato search, and then the top of that is Google search. But did you know that the place that customers come from, and this is about 30-30-30, so it's about a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It's pretty even split. But the one of these 3 that is most likely to lead to a sale on market is actually the stuff that comes from Google. Do you know why? Because it's the shortest route that a customer takes to finding what they're looking for. Remember, value is created when we connect the right item with the right customer. And if we can make that journey really quick, really easy, they'll be more likely to buy. So for you as authors on Elements and on Market, when you invest your energy and your time into making sure your item pages are SEO friendly, you are actually doing the best work possible to generate a sale. It's not Envato search, it's not stuffing keywords, right? It's not looking to see if you can get your item into 15 categories. You know, how many times have I seen websites in the social media category or on Elements? Or I remember very early on, we would see business cards in the UI kits or the UI templates category. That was the worst. Right? But the more effort you put into optimizing your item page for search engines is the most likely effort that's going to pay off for you. And we're not just going to let you go. If you go to our blog, we actually have an SEO guide, a brand new one we just put online for you that you can look at to see how your item pages can be more effective. Well, when it comes to your customers, the more you can learn about them, right, the better your items will be. So, how can you find out who your customers are? Today we heard a little bit about where they're from, right? And we got a breakdown of the different types of customers. But who are they really? How can you know what companies they work for? How can you know what they want to use your item for? How can you find out if they have problems with your items or if they want something different? Envato's not going to give you that information, right? Because that's private information. Envato can't give it to you or else they go to jail. Okay? But it doesn't mean you can't find other ways to learn who your customers are. I've got a list here. Hopefully that works. But you can invite visitors from your other pages to visit your website. If you don't have a website as an author, you need to have a website. This is 2019. Get a website, no matter what. And use it to learn about your potential customers and your existing customers. Okay? Add a mailing list feature. Invite your customers to come and join a mailing list, and then invite them into your creative process. Everybody loves to be involved in the story of creativity. We love to know where things come from. I would love to know the story of this, and I have heard pieces of it even today. Little pieces like how, in order to create this graphic, it has to be representative of different cultures and islands and people types here in Indonesia. And so the artists, as they created it, they brought in symbols that represent all the different pieces of Indonesia. Isn't that an amazing story in the creativity? Don't you think that as a customer, that is something that I would connect to, right? when you can connect people into the story of your creativity through blog posts, videos, introductions, do a profile on the artists that are creating the items, what you do is you invite customers into the experience and you build a bond and trust, and possibly not just one sale, but multiple sales. Selling is more than just getting them to buy your item. It's getting them to buy your story. You can create tutorials and guides and other content to educate your customers. Remember that often when people are buying, they're worried that what they're going to buy isn't going to work for them. And so if you've got more than just simple documentation, but you're actually working hard to educate your users on how best to use your items. A good example in the graphics space is if you are doing a UI kit, for example, or a UI UX template kit in Sketch. Let's just use that as a general example. What are some things that you could do? You could talk about color patterns, right? You could talk about the theory that goes into the creative process that you're doing. You can talk about font sizes. You can talk about font pairings. You can talk about a whole host of different pieces that actually become important as somebody's going to take your UX kit or your UI kit and turn it into something for themselves. Imagine how much more powerful that relationship is and how much more likely they're going to be to come back to you for something else when they know that the quality of content you're giving them and the expertise you have is worth it. And this is just scratching the surface of what's possible. I didn't even talk about creating community through your own forums or social media. But when you take ownership of what you can control, you actually create the conditions for increased success. I mean, just like Theme Fusion did, and many other successful authors have done over the years. But what's really exciting is it doesn't just work for all of these old items. You don't have to have, hundreds of thousands of customers already to make this work. Code TV is a ThemeForest author. They're our London host. So we did a conference there. We've done a meetup there for a couple of years in a row, and Code TV is our host. And he launched a brand new item last year, and in 1 year, that item has made over $100,000 in earnings. Ooh, yeah. Right? And all he did was the things that I've talked about. He carefully researched and surveyed his customer community. He paid careful attention to the details.